Welcome, friends, to another episode of the Pick 6 podcast. I am your host, DPZ, with my co-host sitting next to me, Mr. Drake Magruder at Drakes_PC. Thanks for joining us again for another episode talking about sports cards and more sports cards. Drake, how you doing today, buddy?
Dennis, I'm doing fantastic. Just got off a plane back from Tampa, Florida. So I know our good friend Dustin will appreciate this. I wore my Saints gear when I was down there everywhere. Got funny looks from people and things like that. But, you got to represent the team, even when you're in the territory of the enemy. But glad to be home. Had some flight issues. It's like these springtime storms won't go away. So I'm ready for summer, ready for the faucet to get shut off because my grass, I'm looking out my window. It's like knee high, and I just mowed it a week ago. So.
Boy, isn't that the truth? It's that time of the year where it just grows and grows and grows. And then we'll get later in the year and it's like, we'll die for water. So
exactly.
Definitely. So you have any pickups, anything like that you want to show off before we?
Yeah, I do. I did get one. So I think it's no secret I collect Peyton Manning and I love golds. And so I picked up a 2010 Topps Chrome Gold Refractor of Peyton. So these are numbered out of 50. This is numbered 25 out of 50. This is, like a lot of people, this is my favorite year of Topps Chrome. I like the action shots are phenomenal. The gold border is great. You can hear Peyton shouting Omaha, Omaha, right? And so it's just to me, I fall short of saying it's an iconic image, but it's one of those things where when you see it, you just know what's happening. You can picture what's going on, how he's changing the play at the line. And that's one of the ways that Peyton, changed the game of football as far as going up, changing the play at the line of scrimmage and that whole sort of thing. And so I think that's just a call back to that. It's a really great shot. There's actually the guy who got it. You can see I think PSA is in the 9.0s now. This was 50 in the 54s. So it was graded a long time ago. And I connected with the guy a long, long time ago about it. And we talked about it, and what the timing wasn't right, and his price was a little high, and kept going on and on. And so we finally agreed to a deal after a long time of back and forth, and then kind of silence and this sort of thing. And he, it was kind of neat because he said that he always wanted it to go to my collection. He said it was either going to be in his or mine. He actually had a hobby shop, a local hobby shop of his. He was just thumbing through boxes of cards and happened to see that and was like, oh, this is kind of a cool card. And so he got it and he graded it and it got a 10. It was actually a pop 1 at the time that he got it graded. It's now a pop 2. But it's one of those years of Topps Chrome that you don't see a lot of 10s. And so that era of Topps Chrome, right? I think in 2011 it's a PSA 10 pop 3. So those cards are very there's centering issues and things like that. So just to be able to get that card with the awesome image and the photography and the gold refractor and that sort of thing to finally add that in a PSA 10 to my collection was pretty cool. So very, very cool. What about you? I think I saw something on your Instagram page that you're pretty excited about.
Yeah, no. What you're looking at now is a PSA 10 87 Fleer Michael Jordan, and it's got pop of 200 something, low 200s. As a lot of folks know, I'm putting together the 87 Fleer PSA 9 full set, but the PSA 10 was always on my radar. I wanted to get it back in late 2020, but it was astronomical, and I was nowhere near a place where I could do that. I had built up enough card capital yet to swing it. So there's a nice gentleman online that had this up for sale. I've been getting the tickers for a while, but it's just the price has never been right. I missed out on one that sold for 14 not too long ago. But then I was able to grab this for 15, and it's, again, I know all the folks out there that wanted us to talk about cars that weren't much probably are grinding their teeth right now with me with this, but let me be honest and clear. I took a handful of cards to sell to pay for this. That's kind of how you do it. So you're just basically moving the collateral around. I had to part with some cards I didn't really want to part with, but I had to in order to get this. And the centering, the presentation, the registration, all of that of this card is what matters to me, and finding the right copy that resonates with me, a solid copy. I feel like the stuff that I did have to move and sell, even though I love it, I'd rather have this than, and I think a card like this will hold over time, in my opinion. I think that 86 Fleer does nothing for me. I know some folks don't like this one and love the 86, but I love this design. I love this set. It's my favorite set. 87 tops and 87 Fleer are my favorite jump wax sets. So it just had all those things that spoke to me, and I really wanted to get one. But yeah, now the cards that I had to move to get it are gone, but I'm able to acquire it. So it's really great. And it kind of popped up, and I had to kind of jump on it because it is a very nice centered copy. And that's important. It's almost perfect centering. And the back is really great too. I don't have a photo of the back right now to showcase, but yeah. So just a really cool card. I'm glad to get it, add it to the stable. Yeah, it's one of those things where, I'm kind of shoring it down to like, just a couple Kobe's, Griffey, some some good nice Griffies I was able to finally get my hands on, and then a couple MJs. I do have an 88 Fleer PSA 10. That's a really, really nice copy of that. I didn't think I was going to get my hands on 87. You and I both talked about that for a while, but so I snagged that 88, and I think I might still hang on to that just because I know it's those Fleer 80s cards, and they're not the 90s inserts that are really, really expensive. Still very cool cards. There's so many cool cards of MJ. I just kind of picked a lane. My lane was the stuff that I remember as a kid. And I'm going to hang out there in the PSA 10s of that. So I'm putting a lot of faith in the PSA. I'm putting a lot of faith into the PSA 10 of that card and that population not growing. But I do feel pretty good. I know maybe those in the comments can tell me how they feel. Do you feel like at this point, after the boom and the run up and the run down and all the stuff, it's been about 5 or 6 years. I mean, I think we've seen most of those things come through. I don't know how much that pop's going to grow over time. Can't imagine it'll grow a lot. These are very condition sensitive cards. The centering is always off. I kind of feel safe. I guess safe's not the word. I feel good about my position there. So maybe others would disagree, and I'd love to hear people's thoughts on that. But the population, I feel, is pretty stable and shouldn't grow too much over time. Yeah. So yeah, happy with it.
For with me not being a Jordan collector, and I'm sure you talk to other Jordan collectors, is that one that they chase, or is that more about your set building? Okay.
No, it's not like, I think I talked to one prominent, I'm not going to use names because I don't know if they want to have it shared, but one prominent Jordan collector was like, yeah, that would be like the 400th card I'd get. Yeah. There's like, I'd spend that money on so many other type, a BGS 8 of a really great card in the 90s, but that's great. I mean, that's what they would want to do. And I've kind of since learned that you don't have to fight. And the last few purchases I've made in acquisitions or consolidations or movement to my PC has been more towards the stuff that I remember as a kid. Mm-hmm. And the stuff that I feel like, I remember, I have some sort of attachment to. There are some cards in my collection that I don't. I'm not going to lie. There's some cards that I was not aware of when they came out. But when it comes to like a guy like him, where there's so many cards and there's so many expensive ones, this doesn't even like really touch anything. It's just a great early year Jordan. I mean, if the star is being recognized as his rookie, that's like a third year card now, right? So it's not a huge card, but I think anything in PSA 10 with, at those earlier years, I think should age gracefully. It's not going to 10x. It's not going to be worth all this money. I think if it just holds its ground and maybe grows slowly over time, that'd be a win. Yep. But it's just neat to have a perfect version of that set, of that card, and a card that I remember having as a kid. And, I didn't even have an 89 Upper Deck Griffey as a kid, but I had that Jordan. And I thought I was the coolest guy in the world because I had that Jordan. So,
absolutely. Well, would you throw the card back on the screen again? I was wanting to point out a couple things real quick.
Sure.
This is probably more time than you thought we'd spend on this card, but I think there's a lot to talk about, and it's a big addition. I know you're excited to talk about it.
It is. It's like I said, I feel a bit sheepish now that we were talking about, smaller cards and cards that aren't as tough time getting it up here.
That's fine.
Having being more considerate of cards that are of lesser value and collecting in that sense, and I do appreciate that. So this seems a bit of a turn in that other direction. But go ahead. What were you gonna say?
Well, so the first thing, it's amazing how 3 years into the league, he knew that he was going to be number one overall. He's holding up the number one photo.
Yeah.
So, that was a little bit of foreshadowing there. The other thing I was going to ask you about with the PSA slabs, and I'm right there with you. I used to be like, I don't care what slab it is. And, certain cards, it doesn't really matter to me, but I'm getting more faith in PSA. It's more around their guarantee, probably more than anything. I know people get frustrated with the upcharges, and there's been some recent upcharge changes and what they'll grade and what they won't grade, and we can probably spend a whole episode talking about that. But I think that guarantee is what that they stand behind that. That's probably the biggest thing. But the question I had for you is, based on the time that it was graded, it looks like it was reholdered with the Lighthouse label.
Yep.
Do you, in your PSA graded cards, does it bother you if an older slab doesn't have the Lighthouse label, or do you like to try to get them reholdered to all match or have the latest slab technology and things like that?
It doesn't bother me, but I have reholdered a couple cards. I might, now that they have these newer, I'm not going to take cards like this and re-slab them with the new slabs, even though it's very tempting, because I got an order back of the new slabs just last night of the newer slab. They're really cool. I know it seems kind of silly and petty, but they're sturdier, they're thicker, they feel really great in hand. Actually, the Peyton, I think they were beta testing here and there on some of the cards, because I got the Peyton Manning I had a while back, that Contenders Gold out of 25. Yep. That came in the same kind of holder, because I was curious as to why it was so much thicker. I'm like, this is not a thicker card, but it feels thicker and it doesn't look like a jersey. So I think I got one of those originally, and whoever got, I think Nick bought that card back for me, but that card is in one of those newer holders. I think they were beta testing it back in April. So that's when I got that card. And it's the same kind of feel. So I might take some of the non-Lighthouse ones and maybe upgrade them, since there is that, they might have if one sort of a promotion or something like that for it. Problem is, a couple of the ones I have, they're not, they're fairly expensive cards. I feel a little weird about sending them through the mail, but go FedEx. There's ways to do it where you're not, a little less risky. But yeah, I think I might upgrade a couple of them that way. But for the most part, no, I'd probably just leave them alone.
Awesome. Yeah. So for the viewers, drop it in the comments, your slab preference. Are you satisfied if you've got an old slab? Do you like to keep it in the old slab? Do you prefer to reholder them? If you've got a card in a BGS slab, I love the old label BGS where the grades on the front, subgrades are on the back. That's really neat to me. So just something to talk about. So awesome. Well, congrats again on that pickup. But on to the topics for the week. We'll start with, this is kind of a newer one in the hobby, but PWCC recently announced that they are adding a credit card transaction fee. And gosh, it feels like everywhere you go now, they say, if you're going to pay with a credit card, we're adding 2.9% or 3% or something like that. And it's good in a way. It kind of forces you to use cash, but it stinks in a way sometimes, because you've got to pay that extra amount to use your credit card. And it feels in a way kind of like you're being nickel and dimed a little bit. Like, I know that the business is kind of, they're following along with others. I know that, auction houses like Golden and others have been doing this for a long time. But gosh, it just feels like if you're buying a card, you're paying for the buyer's premium. If you're shipping it to yourself directly, you're paying for sales tax. Then you've got 3% on top of that. If you vault it, eventually you want to have it shipped to you, you've got to pay the fulfillment fee and shipping and that whole sort of thing. And so I guess, do you see that as extra fee? Do you see that as PWCC just kind of doing what everybody else is doing and we're going to adapt? Or do you see that as, the initial onslaught has been real negative towards it, even though it's something that's becoming more common throughout society? And, is that something that you think that PWCC should have done, or does it make them look, I hate to use the word cheap, but more like nickel and diming, and maybe they're not in as good a financial situation as we would be led to believe?
Well, it might be the processing fee, the interchange fee for PWCs. They might be passing along an increase in premium there to the consumer. A lot of businesses do that. You notice a lot of businesses will charge you to use the card. We're going to add an extra, however much if you use your card. And as a banker, it always frustrates me. It's like, come over here and bank with us. You won't have to do that. We can get you a better merchant service situation, or payroll situation and point of sale. But sometimes maybe I have no idea the inner workings behind. Are they able to absorb that premium, that increase, without it hitting the client's wallet? you'd like it to be the case because it's nice. To me, it suggests if we're going to start climbing after that kind of fee, but Fanatics owns PWCC now, so that sort of throws hey, this company's struggling now, they're grabbing whatever they can get. That throws that out the window. So that's a weird thing. I don't know. It is what everybody else is doing, and there is an element of that. There's an element of businesses that tend to see their competition and other folks that operate within the space doing the same thing. Well, they feel like, you know what, either we're going to gain an advantage by not doing it, or we're going to, it's too expensive if we penciled it out for us to absorb it. So we're going to pass it on to the client. So personally, I don't look at that too much. I feel like if I'm going to purchase a card now, you're going to be paying some extra fees for things. If you're going to use a card, you're going to put things on credit. You're going to be paying an extra fee for that. You know, and again, as a banker, I would say it kind of encourages you to use cash and maybe be more wise in your purchases and to utilize capital properly. At least, you know, up front, they're pushing that. But we live in a society that's all on credit, and people try to push stuff on credit as much as possible. I'm not saying it's a good thing, but I'm just saying that's really how everything's driven, right? So it is sort of counterproductive to that. I don't know. I feel like it's a non-issue for me.
Yeah. Well, it's just something, and I was having a conversation this afternoon. You know, you fly on the plane and you got lots of time to talk on the Wi-Fi. And so I was having a conversation with a guy today, and, you know, it's interesting. The buyer's premium, people think like, oh, that's extra 20%, but you just kind of have to build that into the price of the card. But if you look at it, you have to think about that stuff as you're bidding, right? So whatever your final bid is, you've got to add the 20% buyer's premium on top of that. Then say you're shipping it to yourself, and it's, you know, whatever your sales tax is, let's say it's 7 to 9%. So there's, you know, average 28% there from your bid. Then you're adding another 3% on top of that. So, you know, whatever your bid is, you got to think, okay, I'm paying 32% on top of that. And so for some people that may be kind of sticker shock. You know, it's just something to consider when you're bidding, and something to be, you know, extremely just make sure that you're cognizant about that when you're bidding. But also in the same conversation with the person I was having, you know, they said, man, this just really makes me look at eBay as really liking their model, you know, even as they've kind of gone to collectors, because you can buy a card, ship it to the PSA vault for free, essentially. And then it's stored in the vault. And then if you want to fulfill it to yourself, if it's within the first 90 days, it costs $5. If it's after the first 90 days, it costs $1, right? So there's no sales tax, there's no buyer's premium, there's no credit card transaction fees.
Well, and I think you got to keep in mind, PWCC is in a state of transition.
Sure.
I don't know if I put too much faith into and concrete judgment into what that's going to look like as a marketplace in their structure, their fee structuring and on pricing and the vault and all that. I don't know if you would want to put the jury's still out on what that's going to look like from Fanatics, and really when Fanatics really takes that over. So I'd just pause on that. eBay does look like a better, that's a better solution for an online marketplace right now, because they do have some things built into it that allow you to save money on sales tax and vaulting and whatnot. It's very secure. It's a big brand that you can stand behind. The authenticity guarantee helps when you're buying something that may or may not look right. I think, and just like we said earlier with PSA, that guarantee matters to you, right? Well, the guarantee is only as good as the strength of the brand and the company behind it, whether they're going to be around long enough to enforce that guarantee where it's going to matter. You know, those are all things that are kind of, you know, you gotta put, you know, you put your chips into in the middle, the center of the table, and you got to make your bets with and who do you want to be with, you know, who you want to be aligned with. So I think PWCC, the jury's still out on all that. I think it remains to be seen. They might come in there with a Fanatics makeover and dominate the market and come with some changes that make them very advantageous over eBay. Yep.
Nope. Absolutely. Good topic. So our next topic comes in. This was actually a viewer submitted comment, and this is from at McCarran Collector 14. He's got a great AJ McCarran collection. And so he said, explain to the public the difference between a cool PC card versus an important card.
A cool PC card versus an important card?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so I'm going to justify important card right off the bat as a card that matters in the hobby, a card that matters in the collector's, space, the mindset of the collector, like an 89 Griffey upper deck, 52 Mantle tops, maybe 86 Fleer Jordan, we can go, or 80 tops Magic, those are important cards. Those are cards that they can be important, but I think what happens sometimes with some of these iconic important cards, Topps Update Mike Trout, if you want to get more modern, right, you can start going down some of these Prism rabbit holes. But you start looking at some of these cards that are important. They have like a reputation for being a critical card for the hobby community, no matter what sport, like 79, O-Pee-Chee, Gretzky. There's still a lot of them. And so a cool PC card wouldn't necessarily be a card like that, technically. Like that 87 Fleer Jordan, that's not even really an important card or a cool PC card. It's just it's a cool card to me because it's a PSA 10, right? I have that card that I like in the set. And it's still Jordan, so it matters. PSA 10 and 80s, it's still good, but it's not an important card, nor is it a cool PC card. Like a cool PC card is like that Darren McFadden that's a cool PC card because it's like unique and different. It's one of those really cool like variants of a card, and it may not be a major player, but it's still kind of, it's cool. It has this, like, that's a cool card, right?
But just jumping real quick, but do you think a Prism Black Finite is an important card to the hobby? So does the player matter? Does that make sense?
We're going back to what we talked about last time. Yeah. I think it is an important card in the hobby, but I think the player matters.
Yeah.
I think we're past the phase in time and space, at least I am, where I go, wow, I just want to have one of that, a card of somebody in that set because it's so revered, like a PMG or a Central Credentials or a Star Rubies or something like that. I'm like, yeah, it's a really cool card, really cool set. Those are all really cool cards. But do they resonate with me? Do they matter? And I can't afford a Jordan or a Kobe. And those are the guys I'd want out of that set all day, right? But I can't afford that. So I'm just not going to get a card out of that set because I can't afford it. So it's still an important card, important set, important card, but the player is going to matter, in my opinion, to make it, important. Cool PC card is like a unique situation. Maybe there's a story behind the card. Cool PC card, there's a story behind this really neat card. Like I would say my cool PC card is my Giants of the Game, Ken Griffey Jr. It's a PSA 7, doesn't even matter what the grade is, but because there's only 10 of them that were created. It was a redemption card. You got the card in a pack, and you sent it in, and then they hole punched it at the bottom, and they sent you back this poster. And then you got the card back to hole punched. I know one other Griffey collector that has the poster and has a card that's raw, and it has the hole punch in it. And I have one that's not redeemed, and it's graded. And it was found in this lot sale for like a couple $100, and this person just didn't know what they had. It was like, I think it was a Facebook marketplace sale, and the collector didn't know what they had, and it was just kind of it was hiding in amongst a bunch of other just random Griffies that weren't very important, just overproduced cards from junk wax era, and it was kind of stuck in there. And the guy who bought it knew what he was looking for, and he picked it up, and I bought it from him after the fact. And so it's a really rare Griffey. It's probably one of the most rare Griffies ever. It's serial numbered, but nobody knows about it. So the value is kind of dependent on who knows about it and what they're willing to pay for it based on the rarity. But the story behind it's really cool. And I have a buddy of mine that's a collector that has the other one with the poster, and we're kind of like connected because of it. That's cool. That's a cool PC card.
Yeah. Do you think value drives importance, or importance drives value?
The age-old question, man: chicken or the egg? Which comes first? I think there's always going to be an argument that like a card like that is the perfect card for that argument. That card should be worth more than the Essential Credentials now, Ken Griffey Jr. That should be, it's rarer than that card. And there's a couple other cards. Marco Bisio Jr. would tell you. He knows. He's the guy who has the other card. Marco would tell you there's a couple other cards that are rare like that, but he says it's one of the most rare Griffey cards ever. It should be worth what those rare cards are. They should have the same value, but it doesn't, because nobody knows about it, because everybody talks about the PMGs, everybody talks about the Star Rubies, everybody talks about the 89 upper deck, and then so on and so forth. So you don't know about it. So if I just basically went on every single podcast there was and just talked it up, so everybody knew what that card was, maybe I could drive some demand for it. Problem is I don't want to sell it because I like owning something, and that's the collector in me. I like owning something that's super rare. That I'm like, and I love the fact that me and Marco own that card. I love that. That's a really cool story. And him and I talk all the time, and we just like, that's our little fellowship thing. That's neat. That's the part of collecting that sometimes gets lost. So yes, it should be more valuable. It's not, but it's still valuable in a different way.
Yep. Nope. Absolutely. Good discussion. All right. Well, so we'll round out today's episode with one more topic. And so this is, at what point are you satisfied with a card in a certain grade, even if there's a higher graded copy out there? So I'll just kind of share kind of something personal right now.
Go ahead, brother. I know exactly what we're talking about.
It's interesting in the 90s world, right? You get into some of these rare inserts and parallels and stuff like that, and you get a grade and you're happy with it, and you're like, man, I'm good with this. And I hearken back to when I had the Peyton Manning 98 precious metal gem as rookie, and I had it in the BGS 8, and I was just like, man, this is great. I'm excited to own this card. It doesn't matter the grade. Happy with it and all this kind of stuff. And then one day this guy drops into my DMs on Instagram, and he said, hey, Drake, I see you're a big Peyton collector. I have something you might be interested in. And he dropped in the PSA 9 Peyton Manning. I was like, my jaw dropped. I'm like, that to me is a Grell Peyton Manning card. And, we talked about it, and eventually I was able to trade the BGS 8 and some other things up into that PSA 9. And kind of ever since then, it's like, grade is very subjective, and there's a lot of objectivity to it, but there is some subjectivity to it. But I think my personality is a perfectionist and things like that. If it makes sense for me value wise, and if it's a card that I love personally and things like that, it's like I want to have the nicest copy or one of the nicest copies out there. And I think as I've consolidated and grown my collection and things like that, and I've found the cards that I really love and that are really important to me. I've found more and more that I want to have the nicest copy out there, if it's possible. So, anyways, that's my take.
And it's that there's a nicer copy out there, and it just bothers you to no end to know there's a nicer one, and you have to go get the nicer one. Is that what you're saying?
Yeah. Like, say for example, you've got a it doesn't have to be valuable, but say there's a PSA 9 and you've got a Pop 1 PSA 9, and all of a sudden a PSA 10 hits the pop report or is available or something. Are you just like, what? I've got a PSA 9 Pop 1. I'm good with that. Or you're like, man, it would be really nice to have that card in a gem mint grade and say that I've got my favorite card in the nicest grade out there.
Yeah, I think I would. I'm like you. I'd want to get that one that's, if it's within a budget of mine. I would love to get it. I did that with a Griffey card as well. I had a PSA. I had a PSA 10 of it, and then I sold it, and then I went and got a BGS 9. I think I mentioned this in the last. I cracked it, resubbed it. It came back a PSA 7, which is interesting. But I sold the 7 and ended up going and getting back the 10 that I had. It's a Pop 110. And it's an out of 25 card, 98 red class. I think I showed it off at one point. That was a card where it's like, I just got to go get that back. I want the Pop 1. I want the 10. I can't have a 7 when I've had the 10 before. It's even worse yet when you've actually held the Pop 1. You actually owned it. I was able to go back and get it for cheaper. Which was great. It was kind of a win all around. But that's tempting for me. Mm-hmm. But then budget allowing, right? If it's too much of a stretch, I won't do it. I'll be like, I'm just happy to have one. If it's the kind of card that like you're talking about, a serial numbered card like that matters to you, that's important. Just owning a copy is great, right? Sometimes it's just like, okay, that's what I'm going to have, and I'll just take it. So.
Yep. Well, it's interesting because you always hear buy the card, not the slab or not the grade or something like that. But just with certain cards that you just really, really love, it's like, do you want the house that's on the beach or do you want the house that's across from the beach? And
I feel like I've been kind of zooming around in circles. I've talked a lot on this episode. I'm sorry, Drake. I feel like I'm zooming around a lot. I've gone all over the place on grading and buy the card, buy the grade, different sets, the kind of cards I'd like. I just all over the place. But I've kind of settled back and circled back and settled into this like pretty firm belief that PSA It's just, I don't want anything else but PSA, if I can help it anyway. And the higher the grade, the better.
Mm-hmm.
Because let's face it, folks, it commands the money. Big money is being spent on vintage cards, older cards. Obviously, you see all the scandal on Kurt's Card Care and all that. Everybody wants bigger grades. There's a demand for it. Otherwise, there wouldn't be someone like him doing that. There's a demand for the higher grade, the better version looking of a card. People just want the better, the nicer specimen. They want that. They want to find rarity. They want, and even if, like for me, like my card I bought with the Jordan, it's sort of manufactured scarcity because it's a PSA 10. You know, it's kind of funny because I had a 9 and it's so much less money, but it's like, it's the same card. It's just a little bit better centering. And it's like, gosh, it's amazing that it commanded that much more. And part of that always kind of doesn't sit right with me, but it's what the hobby dictates. It's just and it's kind of driven into me. So I've kind of bought into that. Right. And I'm like, well, I want the nicest copy. So I think it's hard to escape that. And I think there's a lot of people that want to go the other direction and go, well, it doesn't really matter. And this is a big farce and all that. And I'm like, maybe so. But everybody subscribes to that idea that a PSA 10 or a BGS 10 or a Black Label, these are like, I'll say SGC Gold 10, Pristine or whatever. These are the kind of cards, these very, very perfect examples of these cards. These are the cards that people want. I mean, even if they can't afford it, they still want it. I'll sit here and say all day long, oh, I'm just happy having whatever I can get. In the back of my mind, I'm like, of course, if I had all the means, I want the best version. I mean, we all want that for the most part. I mean, there's probably people out there don't care. I'm sure there are. But I think a lot of us do. And that's why the market drives up for PSA 10s. Otherwise, why would it be? Because if everybody thought that way, or there's a massive divide and split on what people thought was important versus PSA 10 versus the card, then the PSA 10 wouldn't carry that value, or a BGS 10. The higher, the more perfect wouldn't carry the premium. It wouldn't be so rare. It just is what it is. I think that grading matters. PSA 10s, BGS 10s, and Black Labels matter. And I think they will forever. I don't think that's going away. It's the only thing Beckett has right now going for it is the BGS 10 and the Black Label. That's it. Black Label and TCG for sure.
Yep. Nope. Absolutely. Yeah. So drop that in the comments. At what point are you happy with your grade? At what point do you want to keep striving for something better? You know, does numbering play into it? If you have a card, say that it's a gold out of 10 or a gold to 50 or something out of, rare insert out of 25, are you happy with the card and the grade you have, or, and say, hey, this card is rare enough just by itself. It really doesn't matter to me. There's 10 copies, right? And I've got a PSA 8. I'm happy with it. It's not worth the extra money to upgrade to a PSA 9, let's say. So drop that in the comments, what you think.
Yeah, let us know. Let's talk about that. There's something else that kind of bothers me, and the reason I like PSA 10 is like you don't see people cracking and resubbing PSA 10s.
Right.
So once they get there, they're done, right? You can feel pretty good about the PSA 10 pop number. Jury's out on the rest of the numbers. How many times people have cracked out at 7s, 8s, 9s and try to get above higher, whatever. There's a lot of cracking and resubbing. So it's hard to trust the pop reports below 10. You can definitely trust them below BGS 10 and Black Label, because who's going to be cracking those out? Not many, I don't think.
Mm-hmm.
So those are the numbers I feel like are the most accurate in the pop reports. You can kind of trust them the most. Nothing's perfect, but I feel the most confident. 9s, I feel like, can be manipulated to like, case in point, like there's cards that are numbered out of a certain number, and yet the pop report is way more than the serial number. It's because people are they're ripping them out, and that's a mess in my opinion. So I feel like the 10s we can trust if you're going to go there. Serial numbers better. Obviously, with a serial number card, it's a little easier to get away with a 10 because having the card's great. Okay, not all of us have 10s. I don't have all 10s, so sometimes the serial number really helps you feel better about the card, right, or the story or all that. But I think the premium being driven up there, I think that it's logical. It makes sense.
Mm-hmm. Definitely. Well, certainly it's an always divisive topic in the hobby, and everybody's got an opinion on it, and everybody's opinion could be correct, right? It's what makes the most sense to you, but that's what we're here for, and that's what we talk about on the pick 6. We give DPZ gives his opinion, and I give mine. Sometimes they're the same, sometimes they're different, but most of all, we want to know your opinion. So as we've said, drop them in the comments, and we look forward to the engagement. If you have any topic that you'd like us to discuss, certainly drop those in the comments as well. So DPZ, It's been a great episode of the Pick Six. Looking forward to these always. Any last closing comments?
No, I think you covered it well. It was a great episode. I hope the comment section comes alive in this grading conversation and some of the other topics we covered. The grading stuff is a divisive topic, but it's also an interesting topic to see how people approach it. I've learned a lot through the comment section from other collectors and their thoughts and feelings on it. That's a great place for us to have a Discord and agree, disagree, whatever. It's a great place to do that. And that's how we all grow and learn as a hobby, is by doing that, talking to one another and engaging. So thanks for showing up today, everybody, and watching us. Hope you have a great weekend. Click subscribe. Check out all the rest of Dustin's awesome videos. He's got really cool face, all his weird faces he puts up there for all the different stuff he does. It's interesting. I don't think we've ever done that, but yeah, go check it out. Subscribe, comment below. Thanks for taking time out of your day to listen to us yak about cards. We have a blast doing it, and we look forward to seeing you next time. Take care, everyone.